Hello, everybody. Bruce from Oregon with the Bruce Morgan Show. Today, we are doing a management video. We are going to be talking about psychological safety and the four types or four stages of psychological safety as it pertains to management. But in general, this could be useful for any context, any group you're working with, any team, any community in which maybe there's some chaos. In any case, today we are joined by our guest cat, Tiny Bonker. Now, Tiny Bonker is a tiny cat, much smaller than the usual cat, but he's still doing his thing. He's got some sort of fancy top hat, glasses, and then he's got a very large coffee, which is what we all need today on this fine Tuesday morning. The weather is very foggy. It's a little spooky. The wolves might be chasing me. I don't know. In any case, let's get into psychological safety. First of all, we have to answer the question, what is psychological safety? So we can go read this nice article I found from the Harvard Business Review. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing. You can go here to the Harvard Business Review and find this article from 2023, What is Psychological Safety? And read it for yourself as homework. However, I will go over the intro. So what is psychological safety? Let's start with a definition. Yeah. That's a good way to start. Team psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team that it is okay to take risks, to express their ideas, to express their concerns, to speak up with questions, and to admit mistakes, all without fear of negative consequences. Okay. And then there's a quote here from someone named Edmondson. It's felt permission for candor. Ooh, that's some 50-cent words right there. Okay. In any case, this is a good definition. Now, what I found when I was doing some other Google searches is that there are these four stages of psychological safety that people have developed. So over here on psychsafety.co.uk, hello, London. London is calling. They have defined four stages of psychological safety. And they mention this book. Timothy Clark has a book called The Four Stages of Psychological Safety. This could be a good book. If you are a manager and you are trying to develop teams, either new teams or you're coming into a pre-existing team where there's maybe a lot of legacy in terms of the way people interact. Maybe there's some stress or there's some conflict in between sub-teams of a larger team. I've seen that happen. This book could be very useful. So give it a look and check it out. Okay, so Clark describes a conceptual model of four stages of psychological safety that teams can move through, progressing from stage 1 to stage 4. So this is interesting. And, with these things where it's sort of like a flow or stages or steps, and they're doing training or management training, or even if it's just individual training at work, things like strengths finders or things like that. I tend to find that all of these things can happen all the time in any order. There can be some that are more pronounced than others. There can be some that are missing. There can be some that are happening all the time and not just once. So keep that in mind. That's my experience. I mean, these are just frameworks. And the frameworks are there to help you learn some new information, think about things in a different way, have a new view. So that's what we're going to do when we look at these things. Okay, so the four stages that they defined are, number one, inclusion safety. Okay, and inclusivity is very important at a job, especially when you're a manager. And a lot of times when you're hiring people as a manager or you're trying to build out a team, put a team together, people talk about inclusion in terms of like maybe racial diversity or geographic diversity, where someone's from. But inclusion and diversity and inclusion can actually be about a lot of other things as well. Okay, so you need to keep this in mind. So for example, it might be somebody, maybe your business, you hire from a lot of, where I worked, we hired from a lot of colleges that would have engineering graduates, computer science graduates, things like this. Now, maybe you can hire an employee who is pivoting or doing lateral career development. And maybe their degree isn't in engineering or computer science. Maybe they've learned that along the way. And their degree is, for example, in physics or anthropology or something like this. When you have some diversity of background, diversity of education in your team, that gives you a lot of creativity because you can have people come together and find solutions using things they know from a different domain. If everybody went to the same college and learned how to, program in Python in the exact same way, they're all going to have this monolithic mindset of how to solve a problem, and there won't be as much creativity. So what you want to look for when it comes to inclusion and diversity is diversity of different attributes, different backgrounds, different experience, and things like that. And then when it comes to inclusion, what you're really trying to do is make the members of the team feel safe to belong to the team. So they say, comfortable being present, not feeling excluded, and feeling like they're wanted and appreciated. So I have a few thoughts on this. So sometimes it can be very easy to have a team and give certain members of the team very specific jobs, like person A is in charge of this product and person B is in charge of this product. And then pigeonhole those people into meetings or emails or documents or information that is only relevant to the thing that you have assigned to them. And I think this is a mistake. I think it is very good to have a broader view for each employee of what the full team is working on. So it could be optional, but invite these other people. If there's important things happening with Project B, invite the people from Project A so that they have visibility into it. And maybe they don't even attend the meeting, but they see the documents. They get added to the email distribution list. They get added to the SharePoint sites or the document repositories where they can read other documents outside of their day-to-day activities. I think that's super important, is to let the employees get a view of the bigger picture, or maybe it's a temporary assignment, okay? Maybe your team works on technology A, but you work with a team that works on technology B. And maybe somebody goes on vacation, a big vacation or a sabbatical or something, or somebody leaves the company and Project B needs help. Giving somebody in your team the opportunity to work on that other project will help them feel included in the larger team, okay? I've seen this in the past where if you have a bunch of sub-teams in a larger team with a second level manager, for example, if the people in the sub-teams don't have any visibility into what's going on in these other teams, they just feel like they're out of it. They just don't feel like there's any inclusion, any team building or teamwork. It's going to be harder for these people to work together and collaborate when they need to. So inclusion safety is very important. And then when it comes to feeling like people are wanted and appreciated, one thing I've learned over the years is that different people have different styles of how they like to be recognized or appreciated. So for example, some people may really appreciate a big award in front of a larger team, a division, like a division award and a certificate or an award plaque or some big award like this, and getting that award in front of the whole team or the larger team. Some people don't like that at all. Some people just want to come to work and do their job and not deal with a lot of social recognition. An email saying thank you may be all that they want. Some people may not care about a plaque or a certificate or an email thank you. Maybe they want financial recognition. They want a kudos award, $25, $50, $100 as a little award, a thank you. They may think that's the best. So it's important to know when you have a team, what is the style of recognition and appreciation that works best for each person in your team or your team as a whole? This is an important thing to learn as a manager. Okay. The other thing I want to mention on this bullet one about being present and being comfortable being present. I've been to a lot of meetings where the only people that are having a discussion or are talking or are debating or brainstorming in that meeting are the most senior people in that meeting, like the 2 or 3 most senior people, or the managers of different people in that meeting. And then the individual contributors, the newer employees, maybe it's people on a remote site, maybe it's when I worked in tech, there were women in tech who maybe felt intimidated by all these men arguing with each other. There's geographical differences. For example, I've worked with people from Israel who are more confrontational in their conversational styles. And that's just sort of normal to them. It's not insulting and it doesn't create conflict. They just argue really hard with each other and then go get a beer and they're totally fine. On the other hand, I've worked with people in India or South Korea where it's very different. Maybe you don't want to argue as publicly and it's less confrontational. Especially in South Korea, there was a style of being present in the meeting where you're sharing information and you're not trying to make decisions or criticize a potential brainstorming idea. You want to get all the information from the people you're collaborating with. Then you want to leave and hash out all those details in private, maybe. Maybe it's one-on-one, maybe it's with the manager. And then come back later with the consensus. So in terms of making it comfortable for your employees to be present, whether it's on-site in meetings or on Zoom calls and things like that, you have to take into account what are the things that are going to be barriers to making the team feel comfortable. Is it going to be cultural style? Is it going to be gender? Is it going to be pay grade level? Is it going to be individuals versus managers? And then try to create meetings or collaboration mechanisms where you can get rid of those barriers. So, for example, if I know that I'm the most senior person in the room, my goal going into that meeting is going to be letting everybody else talk way more than me. And maybe, especially at the beginning of the meeting, maybe I only give my advice if I'm the most experienced person in the room at the end, or maybe make a decision at the end, or ask tough questions at the end, or even ask those tough questions offline. These things will help build inclusive safety. Okay, let's move on to number 2, learner safety. This is where members are able to learn through asking questions. This is very important. Team members here may be able to experiment, make and admit small mistakes, and ask for help. Yeah. Especially in a job where you're trying to solve problems or develop new content, like you're doing product development, research and development, you're writing software, you're building things, you're trying to figure out how to make airflow work with fans in a system, anything where you're doing something new. It's very important to have, from a management perspective, the state space in your schedule and in the work you're giving your employees, the time to experiment, okay? Just sort of unbound time to try things, have a problem that nobody knows how to solve, give them time to go work on it in their subconscious while they're doing other things at the same time in parallel, okay? Making mistakes and learning from those mistakes will make the next project better, okay? There's a tangential topic that I'll do in a subsequent video about that, but basically the idea is, it's sort of like the idea that you have to build like 1,000 light bulbs before you come up with a design for a really good light bulb. And not everything has to have 1,000 mistakes before you hit the answer, but sometimes it can take that long. So you have to have, whether you're doing pure research or product development, product research and development, you have to have at least an amount of time in the schedule, in your head count, and just when you're talking to your employees, that going through these mistakes and learning from them is part of the process. Things don't have to be perfect the first time. Okay. The other part is questions. Um, I found a lot of times it's way better, especially when you're one on one with your employees, to ask questions more than making declarative statements. Questions are way better, even if you think you already know the answer or you're trying to help your employee understand something or figure out what to do. If you use a question, it can get the employee to get to the answer or to see new things or to learn new things faster than if you just tell them. So, and actually, asking questions in terms of debate, like let's say you're brainstorming and you're trying to figure out what to do on the next project. Asking questions as a form of debate is actually called the Socratic method. You can look it up, and it's sort of like, instead of just saying like, no, you're wrong, or oh, here's the information, the idea is that you are talking to someone conversationally and you are just asking them why something's important, asking them what would happen if, trying to find the boundary conditions of your conversation by using questions so that you and the person you're talking to can agree more quickly instead of talking past each other. I've been to so many meetings where people will make declarative statements or present information and they don't realize they're talking past the other person. The other person doesn't understand them yet. And I found that if you ask more questions, this can really help get either a meeting or a one-on-one conversation into this learner safety mode a lot faster. Okay, number 3, contributor safety. For this one, members feel safe to contribute their own ideas, okay, without fear of embarrassment or ridicule. This is a more challenging state because volunteering your own ideas can increase the psychological vulnerability of team members. Yeah, this is true. And again, this gets back to do you feel safe enough to brainstorm? And one thing I found that is very helpful, I have to try and remember the name of it, but it's a brainstorming technique where, let's say you've got your, 8 team members in a conference room all day. They've traveled on site and you want to do some brainstorming about next year, next quarter, improving the team, improving the projects, improving the products. Instead of just having people throw out ideas verbally and then maybe writing them down on the dry erase board or making a list on paper or something, it's actually better if you can do something like an exercise where maybe you present a series of questions as the manager and you have employees spend 10 minutes writing down their ideas or answers to these questions on slips of paper, Post-it notes, something like this. Index cards. Index cards work really well, or Post-it notes, especially if you can put the Post-it notes on the dry erase board later. And what you want to do is you basically want to anonymize all of the ideas that your team is brainstorming and shuffle them up. And that's why index cards work well, because you can shuffle them. With Post-it notes, you kind of have to just try to put them up. If you're going to stick them on the dry erase board, put them up in a random order. And there's sort of a technique where you do this. Let's say we have a question and everybody writes their ideas from your team on the Post-it notes. You try to randomize them a little bit, and then you put them up on the dry erase board. The next step you would do is try to categorize the ideas, because different team members may come up with similar ideas. They may say, we need to hire a new person to XYZ. And so 3 people might have said that. So you have 3 Post-it notes that are kind of the same. And what you want to do is you group those ideas together or into higher level categories. And then what you can do is you can, again, anonymously have people vote on the categories they think they're the most important. And as you do this, you can iteratively get to the best ideas. And you could say, what's the best idea? Or you could do a multi-variable grading system where you say, okay, let's grade complexity or the amount of time it'll take to do something versus its value. Because then what you can do is look for high value items that people have contributed that maybe have lower complexity or lower amount of time it takes to do it. And those will be the best things to do. There'll always be sort of these high complexity or high cost things that are very valuable. And there'll be sort of these lower value, incremental things, but they're very easy to do. And you want to try and kind of grade those things so that you can maximize the value and minimize the cost. And if you do it in a way that, lets people come up with the ideas before you evaluate them or before they can even subconsciously evaluate them, then that'll be good. Because, for example, if you're doing a brainstorming exercise and you're just letting people throw out answers, then those initial answers are going to impact people's thinking while they're trying to come up with other answers. And that's what you want to avoid. Okay. And I think that style that I just described, I think it's called nominal group theory or NGT. So if you do a Google search for that, you can look up nominal group theory, and that could be valuable for your team as well. Number 4 is challenger safety. Challenger safety. Members can question others, including those in authority, ideas, or suggest significant changes to ideas, plans, or ways of thinking. And I understand why they're putting this forth, because I have seen some very technically astute people struggle with this bullet point, this number 4, okay? Especially when it comes to figures in authority. I worked in a place where the pay grade wasn't strictly tied to the management hierarchy. It was also tied to the technical contributor hierarchy. And in that situation, it was very public in terms of job titles and job roles. Who were the technical authorities in any team, meeting, or group setting? And I've literally had people that I was coaching or having one-on-ones with or meeting with at lunch, and they said, oh, and I was talking to them about something, and I was like, oh, the thing they're asking you to do, it's not your job. You shouldn't do it. It doesn't make any sense. Here's why it doesn't make any sense. And they said, but so-and-so has title XYZ. I can't just say no to them, can I? I've literally had more than one people at work say this kind of thing to me because they don't have challenger safety. Okay, they haven't developed it yet. And as a manager or a mentor to people in your team, as a technical lead, or just mentoring somebody from a different team with less experience, a newer employee, this is a difficult thing to get to. And challenger safety, suggesting significant changes to ideas, plans, or ways of working. And sometimes you have to be on the lookout for when these opportunities will arise. If you need to get a product out the door and you're in the last 2 months of the qualification to get this product out the door, that's probably not the time to start changing all your plans and ideas and ways of working. However, after that project is done, that would be a great time to take a good look and see if you can get your team to challenge some of your own ideas, your plans, your processes, your instructions, your documentation, all of these things. If you can solicit challenges from your team, then they will inherently feel more comfortable with this challenger safety idea. Okay, so these are the 4 stages of psychological safety. We talked about what it is. We talked about some examples from my experience and some roadblocks I ran into and how I approached those. If you have any questions about any of this or any ideas or comments or other topics to branch off from that we could go over next time, let me know in the comments section. If you've stuck around this long, thank you so much for your time. I'm Bruce Morgan. This is the Bruce Morgan Show. This has been Management Best Known Practices, Psychological Safety. Thanks, guys.